ready, kids.
Don't hurt yourself.
It's movie time.
Yay. I may end up talking about more things that aren't movies than things that are movies this week.
I thought about doing that, but I'll see where the conversation goes. So, welcome to the Hack Fraud Show. It's Iranian Cinema Week.
Hooray!
Well, one of them was made in Iran.
Well, they were made by an Iranian film. They were both made by the same Iranian filmmaker. One of them was made primarily in Europe. Anyway, this week we're looking at the work of Abbas Kiarostami, the late Iranian filmmaker, who died last year.
Was it during the summer or?
July.
It's been a year.
I did see something on Twitter. Apparently, Janus Films will be putting out his final movie at some point.
Ooh.
So
Interesting.
We have that to look forward to, or perhaps not. Anyway, yes. So we will get into these movies that we watched. Close Up and Certified Copy. We will get into those in just a little bit. But first, what have we been watching?
What have we been watching? Well, one of the things I watched this week was because this is going to be the strange thing about like this TV class I'm taking is that like what's going to happen is I'm just going to be given episodes of television with very little context, and I'm just going to have to try and formulate a critical opinion out of like a singular portion of like these sometimes like decade-long series, like. With, like, How I Met Your Mother, I had, like, to distinguish what I thought about a decade-long series with a single episode. So, what I had to do this week was I watched an episode of Friday Night Lights, because, like, one of the things that we were looking at in our class was, like, the idea of seeing, like, the other on television, like, where you have, like, a primary, like, national audience, and what is the other to our national idea. And in this episode, it was, like, we have, like, the small Texas town, but, oh no, there's a black quarterback from New Orleans who's going to come into the team. And, yeah, there's some questionable things there. Is Friday Night Lights a critical darling?
I think it is. I think, well, based on what I've heard, the second season, like, most people don't like. Apparently there was a big misstep there, but other than that, I'm pretty sure, like, the show's pretty acclaimed.
Oh shit! What season? What season was the episode? Why this another issue? Just like getting it, just like it thrown to me. Oh god! But this was an episode where, like, yeah, it's about. It's interesting because like the quarterback is in this Texas town because like he's like a refugee from New Orleans due to Katrina. And there's all sorts of melodrama about, like, an injured quarterback and how, like, he might not ever get his life back together. And, like, this entire town is, like, completely revolving around this football team. Like, there's also a subplot of Rivalry Week and the celebrate Rivalry Week by the both teams by just committing crimes. Like, the opening of it is, like, the rival team, like, tearing down their weight room. And the first response isn't, we should call the fucking cops. It's, no, kids, don't retaliate. And, like, the way they respond is and the way that they respond in, like, a secret car mission is by smashing the car of the opposing team's quarterback. And again, nobody calls the cops.
Well, so just like real Rivalry Week. I mean, I'm not seeing much of it.
Yeah, it's just like real life.
Yeah,
no one calls them. Everything's done by football vigilante justice. This is such a. I guess like I am just so removed from this culture because we were in a school district that had. There was a football team. It existed. People did things on Friday night.
Yeah,
but it was hardly like a cultural phenomenon.
It was a pretty big thing at our high school.
What?
Wait, what things were done on Friday night? Because I remember,
football. People threw balls. They had tailgates. You paid $10 for a ticket.
Was it really $10 for a ticket?
Tickets were pretty expensive.
Was it 5 or was it 10?
I don't remember. I think it might have been 5 for students. Who cares? Why are we talking about this? Talking about Friday Night Lights.
Doesn't matter. It's more. I guess it's like just like about like sort of a cultural malaise that I have like viewing it. Is that like I just view like this closed circuit that the show has set up, and I just have no way of seeing reality in it. I just see like somebody's like fairy tale vision of like a Texas town, and I just find no real way to penetrate it, and it's just super melodramatic and like a few steps from soap opera in places, and I just couldn't get into it much.
All right, well,
there's also a really creepy boy waiting in a girl's room, and that's not played as the creepy thing as it is at the end.
For the record, based on what I'm reading here, the show never really got great ratings, but it was a critical success, and it won some Emmys, so there you go.
I mean, the camera work's interesting for like mid early 2000s, like the sort of quasi sort of handheld.
Also, the show was also developed by Peter Berg, who gave us such cinematic masterpieces as Deepwater Horizon and Patriots Day, or whatever that Boston bombing movie was called.
Oh, joy. So, yeah, I'm mostly cold on that work.
All right. Well, there you go.
What else?
John is cold on Friday Night Lights. You hear that, devoted cult following?
Oh no, a controversial opinion on the Hack Fraud Show. This is new territory, boys.
I'm not even sure
John's
this opinion is that controversial.
New.
No one I know cares about Friday Night Lights, except maybe Darren Franich. I don't know.
I think they do. But I think another like big thing I watch, and then I'll let y'all talk about stuff, and maybe I'll circle around, is Logan Lucky.
Ah, yes.
What a fucking ride.
What a ride. Yes, indeed.
If Daniel Craig doesn't get like a nominee for Best Supporting Actor, I'm gonna punch someone. He's fucking excellent in the movie.
He's so great.
He's so great. They have fucking fake salt.
Oh my god.
He always has his 2 eggs.
Yep.
Now I see the problem. I tied the bag too tight. Yeah, Logan Lucky is about a big heist in the Deep South where, like, a bunch of down on their luck West Virginians go try to perform a heist on the Coca-Cola 600, full of all the southern periphery that one might expect.
Yep.
It's a fairly decent depiction of the Deep South, I must say. It's a bit glorified in places, but, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Granted, every once in a while, Alex would ask me, and he'd say, like, does this actually happen in the South? I say, yes. Maybe not giant heists of the Coca-Cola 600, but some of the other stuff, yeah. Like, they will spray paint a 6-year-old, probably with a paint can. That's something they probably do.
Does everyone in West Virginia actually know the words to Take Me Home Country Roads? Because I assume they do.
That would not surprise me one bit. And granted, somebody says, like, somebody calls another person the Unabomber, and and Alex is like, who the fuck would do that? And I said, my mother, Alex. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as I think it's a bit rough in places because sometimes they just really want to jump from character to character.
Yeah, it's not the most impeccably paced movie in the world.
No, but like once we get to the heist,
the heist is great.
It's like clockwork.
Yeah,
and yeah, I guess I have no more to say than that, other than like Logan Lucky is a good time.
Yeah, with
like a really great heist scene and some really fun Southern performances.
I think people should see this movie. Like it.
Oh yeah.
It is the movie that makes the summer not a complete complete failure. So I would encourage everyone. I mean, this movie's not doing great at the box office.
No,
but
that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting if you read up on it. I don't want to take the time to explain it, and I'm not sure I could do it very well. But read up on like the release and financing strategy that Soderbergh came up with for this movie, because it's very interesting.
Interesting. Maybe I'll do that in between homework and all a bunch of other bullshit.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I guess I kind of put it in, like, the same places. Like, I was talking about, like, this with Alex and Matthew, who I saw it with, and they were kind of like, they liked it, but they were kind of more lukewarm on it. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much said, this is kind of in the same spot as, like, Baby Driver, as, like, a really fun diversion summer movie.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot of those sometimes, in some summer seasons.
Yeah. Oddly, though, I'd say even this movie's even, like, better written than Baby Driver. I think the character work in this is very well done.
I think so too. I think it's like it has a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun than Baby Driver, I think. But other than that, yeah, if you're hankering for a Soderbergh heist film,
there you go. Yeah, I still haven't seen any of the Ocean's movies, but
there's reference to the Ocean's movie in this.
Oh, they do.
Ocean 7-Eleven.
Ocean 7-Eleven.
In the movie.
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
Which is great. So if you want to see one of the best Daniel Craig performances, go right ahead.
Oh, I love him so much.
Regardless, what have y'all been watching?
Reed, you're on.
Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, so I forgot to mention last week, but I will be watching several documentaries this semester.
Ooh.
And so I watched a 1996 documentary called Baraka.
Baraka?
It is mainly about like geography of places around the world. 1992 film Robert Frick. Film. It is a bunch of moving picture images.
Featuring no conventional narrative, this film presents footage of people, places, and things from around the world, from chaotic cities to barren wilderness. Detouring into former concentration camps, the production doesn't shy away from the dark side of humanity and ultimately shows much of the world is interconnected by both the tragedy and vibrancy of life.
You still like that? How dare you? But, yeah. Also, child poverty and factory farming was also there. So that was pleasant, obviously.
Is it good?
Some good pleasantries.
Well, I can't imagine an experimental documentary with no narration or narrative can be an easy watch.
It kind of sounds like a more obscure Koyaanisqatsi.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Not nearly as good of a score.
Oh, you've seen Koyaanisqatsi?
Well, everyone's heard the Philip Glass score.
Oh.
Well, and that's all you need.
And there's lots of them. Well, granted, one of the best things, somebody on Vimeo made Koyaanisqatsi, where they just recreated the trailer of Koyaanisqatsi all in stock footage.
Oh.
But regardless, so it's kind of like an experimental documentary about life, death and life, juxtaposition. Ooh.
Factory farming, also.
Well, naturally. Would you recommend it?
Yes.
But so what you're saying is that if you've exhausted every movie the world has ever made, then you should watch Baraka.
Perhaps, yes.
Okay, then. That's a recommendation.
A hearty recommendation.
So what else did you watch?
So a couple of college people and I are embarking on a quest of It.
Oh.
So eventually I may end up being dragged to see the new It. But I'm not going to talk about the new It. I'm instead going to talk about
Tim Curry.
The abomination of Tim Curry's 1990 Canadian miniseries It. In DVD form. You can see all 187 minutes. I saw the first 100. And then it was
that, my only introduction to this movie is through the classic Nostalgia Critic review. That's my only real exposure to this miniseries.
So I'm going to call this part 1 because I haven't seen part 2. But let's get part 1. Okay, so we have Weiser in Derry, Maine, which is killing children, but only the children can see.
Naturally.
And so it's around 1980s, around 1990. So somewhere around then, children start dying in this town.
Naturally.
And a librarian gets notice, and then he's freaking out. Calls all of his buddies he knows from 30 years ago when there were murders then, and then say, "Hey, come back because we made a promise." Shit. And then for the next hour and for the next 20 minutes, it's just a series of flashbacks with that character. And I got to tell you, I thought at the hour 40 mark, I thought that was 3 hours. And then we looked, there's still an hour and 27 minutes left. Stopped.
Oh, what a glowing review.
And let me tell you, I think I see a trend. Movies from Stephen King books, good thrillers, shitty movies.
Well, it's kind of like The Shining, Carrie, and what's like the other like good Stephen King movie?
Well, there are a few. There's Shawshank Redemption. There's
Shawshank. I forgot.
Stand By Me. Misery, I've heard, is pretty good. I've heard The Green Mile is like okay.
But there's also a lot of schlock.
Then there's The Mist, which I've heard is really not so hot. But okay, so it's another ringing endorsement or not for the It miniseries.
I will say Tim Curry, great clown.
Yeah.
I hired him for my birthday party.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. I think of it all. It's just him as a clown. He wasn't that scary. He was goofy and psychopathic, if that. But I wasn't afraid of him.
Well, I only really think that it gained a lot of infamy was because I just think people are just scared shitless of clowns for whatever reason. I think that's about it.
Which is very strange.
There are also several. What?
I said, which is very strange. I've never been scared of clowns.
Because people say, I just don't get why people are just so scared shitless of clowns for some reason.
Yeah, no, it makes no sense. It's never really made any sense to me.
The new one's getting decent reviews. I'm not gonna fucking see it.
I don't particularly care.
The trailers are terrible.
Yeah, the trailers are not so great.
Did you see anything else, Doctor?
And that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, well, I did see my life flash before my eyes, but I'll bring that up later.
How was that?
And I did.
How was your life in HP?
How many stars out of 5 would you give your life flashing before your eyes?
I'd like to give it a star on Yelp.
For those who might be concerned, Reed fell off his bike earlier today and had to go to the hospital, but he is by all accounts fine. Is that
fine.
right?
His face still has face-like characteristics, to quote him.
Goddamn.
Always wear your helmets, kids.
Yes. So, let's see. Life... Okay, we need to move on, but I suppose life flash before my very eyes. 3 stars,
Okay. There you go.
Okay, mediocre at best.
All right.
Alrighty, so yeah. Tyler...
Yes?
What have you been watching?
Well, I did not have time to watch any extracurricular movies this week, but I did see a couple of things. One of them, I have been watching the new season of BoJack Horseman, which dropped this past week on Netflix.
Oh boy.
Let me tell you.
I've seen some clips, man. Holy shit. Holy shit.
I haven't finished it yet. I'm only about halfway through. But let me tell you, this show is not afraid to get dark. We knew this already.
Yeah.
Episode 2 of this new season. Woof. Woof. Let me tell you.
Oh, I get it, because horses have hooves.
Oh no. That is not even close to what I was referring to.
Alrighty.
Good lord. Good lord, good lord.
Yeah. Yeah, the show, it's kind of dark.
real, yeah. But anyway, the show, it's interesting. The show seems to be starting to move in a new direction, which is not, that's not a qualitative assessment that I'm making. I really do feel like the first 3 seasons of this show felt like they told, really, like the end of season 3 kind of opens the door for like several new potential threads, but really the first 3 seasons
kind of serves as a bow tie.
But really the first 3 seasons felt like a very kind of complete story, and I think the creator has acknowledged as much. So this new season is kind of a new chapter in the story, I feel like. You know, the first 3 seasons were just this, like, continuous downward spiral for BoJack as a character. Not quality-wise, I mean, it only got better, but for BoJack as a character, it was just a continuous downward spiral, and now we're kind of seeing a new mode, and it's interesting. And it's a very, it feels like a different kind of show now. And also, episode 4 finally very explicitly addresses one of the big kind of questions that everyone had about this universe, but nobody really wanted to say out loud.
How do they have sex,
which is,
Tyler?
How does sex work? How does Diane have sex with her dog husband? How does a cat and a mouse person having sex work? If you wanted answers to those questions,
you
got them.
I mean, I think I have one important question, though, with that. How does have sex with Vincent again?
Well, you never... How far did you get in the show? Because Vincent Adultman has not been around for quite a while.
Oh, not very far at all.
Okay, yeah, you didn't even get to the end of the Vincent Adultman thread, which is one of the best things ever, I have to say. God, you didn't even get to Hollywood stars and celebrities. What do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out.
Yeah, so we are not nearly as updated on the show, even though from what little I've seen, it is still a masterpiece.
Oh, it's quite a masterpiece, and I'm excited. I desperately want to watch all the other episodes of this season, but I've made the decision to go at a more leisurely pace, if only
thyself.
for my own peace of mind. So that's BoJack. In conjunction with that, I know we talked about Rick and Morty briefly, but I've also the new season of that has just been appointment viewing for me.
Oh yeah.
The writing on that show, which was already incredible, somehow has only gotten even better this season.
Yeah, well, it's a case like I think they're like just finally coping to their own mythology at this point. And the stature that the show has, in like a way that like them as like, hey, we're it's a crazy sci-fi thing on Adult Swim. Look at me, the forehand, which was great, but it's like now they seem to be making weightier decisions.
It's all great. And then I watched another episode of Twin Peaks. My opinion, it was the most entertaining episode so far, but I'd like to get to the end of the first season, but I really don't know how far I'm going to continue beyond that.
Twin Peaks is something I'm going to have to watch for my TV class, so I will see how I react to that.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that, because it's pretty much just more of the same. And then one non-movie or TV thing I saw, but which I think still bears mentioning, I went to the Hollywood Bowl to see the Muppets Take the Bowl, a live show starring the Muppets, and let me tell you, that was a glorious experience.
Well, it's the Muppets Live. What is there to go wrong?
Yeah, I don't think we've really ever discussed, but the Muppets are like one of the defining things of my life, and I love it. I love the Muppet Show. I love the older Muppet movies. I just love the Muppets, and this was an incredible experience. They did basically just a live version of the classic Muppet Show. Bobby Moynihan was the celebrity guest, which was a little bit strange, but he seemed to be having a good time.
Yeah, my Muppets viewing appointments are rather slim, and I think I need to change that.
Seek out the classic show if you can. It's an incredible like outpouring of creativity and humor.
Okay. What would you say about the movies?
The movies are good. I love the Muppet movie. That's just an all-time classic. Orson Welles is in it. How could you go wrong? Let's see. Great Muppet Caper I like quite a bit. I haven't seen it all the way through in a while. The Muppets Take Manhattan is just glorious. And
that's another one that kind of gets quoted a lot.
Yeah. And, you all know how I feel about the Muppet Christmas Carol, so...
Well, naturally.
Yeah.
So there we go.
So there you go. That's the Muppets. Also, Paul Williams was there. He came out at the end to sing Rainbow Connection with everybody, which was delightful. Right. It's good to see he's doing well and is still alive. Although he was in Baby Driver also, which I kind of forgot about. But there you go.
I didn't even notice it.
He's a big deal now. He's producer of Daft Punk's most recent album.
Good lord.
That's what I've been watching. So.
Yeah. I can't quite say I'm able to go out to the Hollywood Bowl and go see Muppets Take the Bowl.
Yeah, well, you can't because tonight is the last one. But I'm so glad I was able to do it. I'm glad the stars all aligned so that I was in the right place to be able to go and see it. It was spectacular. The entire Hollywood Bowl singing along to Rainbow Connection with Kermit the Frog and Paul Williams is something that will be seared in my memory forever.
Yeah, I'd pay a shitload of money to do that.
And it was not expensive at all. The tickets were quite affordable. But there you go. All right. So from the Muppets to the films of Abbas Kiarostami, because this is how we do it. If this podcast were a Damien Chazelle movie, it would definitely be Whiplash.
Whiplash is too consistent.
Anyway. All right, what do we want to talk about first here? Should we start
I don't know.
Should we start with close-up?
It's one real read has the power of which one we talk about first.
Well, speaking of bike accidents... Okay, speaking of bike accidents, let's talk about Certified Copy.
Where was there a bike accident in Certified Copy? Did I miss something?
There wasn't. It felt like a bike accident.
Felt like it was a bike accident.
Okay.
So
2010's Certified Copy. So this movie was made primarily in Europe. If not, well, entirely in Europe. What am I saying? Starring our old friend Juliette Binoche of Three Colors Blue fame, among other things. Also starring, I forget the lead actor's name, but he was an opera singer, and this was his first film role, apparently.
Interesting.
Which, kudos to him, because he gives quite an excellent performance.
I am gonna ask this first off.
Yeah.
Is this what it's like to watch a Richard Linklater movie?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because
that's one of the things I thought of. Like, well, I thought of like the real time stuff that's supposedly in Linklater movies.
Yeah, well, not exactly. Linklater movies are much less about kind of the heady concept and much more about the kind of the characters and the emotions and the emotional dynamics, especially the Before movies. Because I was about to say, this movie really does feel like Before Sunset, like without the emotional core.
Yeah, that's sort of. Were I to see Before Sunset, I would describe it as that.
So yeah, okay. So this movie follows Juliette Binoche, who doesn't have a name in the movie. I noticed.
Yeah.
She comes to this like book talk that this author named James Miller is giving about his book Certified Copy in Tuscany. They meet up and kind of go around the city, like getting to know each other for a little bit. Yeah. Also, she has a dipshit kid who shows up in the movie for 10 minutes for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
God, I wanted to punch that kid in the face.
Yeah, he's just there to demand a Coca-Cola.
Yep.
That's about it.
Let's see. And then, right around the 1 hour mark,
yep,
things take a turn.
Yep.
And not in a, like, not in the way you might expect based on the way I just said that.
May I say a word about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, so this is the first time I've said it, but this is the first time I'm going to say it for the record. With the fact that, up until that hour mark, I kind of liked this movie. Had good philosophical qualms, sort of point before he walks out of the cafe and then tells his inspiration of his book, and then she feels remorse for that. I'm like, ooh, where's this going to take me now? And then right afterwards,
So let me explain this. Okay.
Tyler, what the fuck happened in the second half?
Okay, I'm gonna try and trace this a little bit. So, what happens is they go to like this little like cafe and get coffee.
Yes.
He steps out to take a phone call. The waitress in the cafe mistakes the two of them for a married couple. Yes. Juliette Binoche, for whatever reason, decides to play along and outlines this whole kind of imagined backstory, like, for their marriage to the waitress. That's fine. James comes back in to the cafe. There's a brief kind of little, like, cute back and forth.
Yeah.
And then they step out, and from the way they act for the rest of the movie, they seem to they begin acting like they are actually a married couple, like in accordance with the backstory that Juliette Binoche outlined to the waitress, and it's very strange.
And the rest of the movie plays off as like the qualms of a marriage on the rocks.
It goes from before sunrise or before sunset without the emotional dynamics to before midnight without the emotional dynamics. Which, now...
Yeah, and it's the strangest fucking thing.
It's so bizarre. You're like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, so,
why is he going along with this? This isn't some, like, bizarro verse where, like, things like this sort of happen. This is, like, we see, like, earnest Tuscany, and, like, people have real conversations about life and love, and then this happens.
Well, it's interesting, because, well, Reed, you said you preferred the first half of the movie, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I don't know, I was kind of watching this, I was kind of not really into this movie. I mean, there were some interesting things. They were talking a lot about, like, the nature of art and the nature of copying and authenticity and all that kind of stuff. That was all interesting talk.
All after fake stuff.
Yeah, but I was kind of watching it going like, okay, like they're okay, like, but like, why am I supposed to care about this? Like, where's kind of what am I supposed to latch onto here? And like, when that like weird like left turn happens and they start acting like a married couple, it doesn't make like logical narrative sense.
No.
But I mean, I'm assuming there's some kind of thematic purpose to it because.
Oh, certainly, it's not like I don't think like he had a stroke when he wrote it. I don't think that's not what happened here.
Yeah, no.
I guess like I'm just like searching for a thematic reason for that to occur.
Yeah, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But I don't know, when that happened, I was kind of like, okay, this is weird, but like at least there's some kind of like. Emotional there's conflict. There's some kind of a story and some kind of like tension going on here, so at least I can latch onto that. So I was kind of into it. I enjoyed that kind of the way they interacted with all of that, and that scene of them at that trattoria where they kind of argue and talk about like kind of the breakdown of their relationship. I thought that was a really good scene, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, and it's got like that weird outdoor kitchen behind glass, and like all the waiters are ignoring them.
Yeah,
I guess I'm with Reed with this as far as like I do prefer the first half because like I guess like I just far more latch on to like the heady philosophical ideals that they talk about, rather than the just really strange and stilted marital strife themes.
Yeah.
Because when they talk about marriage, it is just so strange and removed from anything resembling reality. I just find it just hard to stomach.
Yeah.
To be honest, and even then, like, I mean, and I guess like this is also an issue with the first half of that. Like with both of them, I'm not entirely sure what the point is. I'm not entirely sure what he's trying to say with it. I don't know what the point of the left turn is. I don't know what, like, the conclusion of the left turn means. I really don't know, like, what he's attempting to say about fakery and copies and, like, originality. I don't know how that relates to what happens in the second half. I'm just struggling with, like, where all the threads lead to.
Yeah. That was me. And also, part of me was completely frustrated by that left turn because it negates a lot of what happened between, the characters. Sort of like, it's like, oh, it's like meeting for the first time. It's like, oh, just kidding. They've been nominally together for 15 years. We felt it's like the first hour watch.
Yeah, I am curious, like, whether if, like, what if you, like, cut this movie in half and just set them apart and just, like, showed them consecutively, would they be able to see if it's the same movie?
What? Hold on a minute. Something just occurred to me.
What?
Do they say in the first half of the movie that they've never met before? Or... oh, shit, dude. I just think I cracked the code on this movie. Wait a goddamn second.
Yeah.
Real-time Epiphanies on the Hack Fraud Show. Okay. Wait a minute. I think I just figured this out. Seriously. Like, I don't think they ever say in the first half of the movie that they've never met before. You just assume that based on, like, the way it's all framed and the way it's shot and the way they act. The whole first half of this movie is like a trick to... whoa, okay. I didn't think I ever wanted to watch this movie again, but maybe I'm gonna have to now.
It's a Shyamalan-esque twist at the midway.
So, okay.
That could be a thing. That could be a thing.
So, the real story of this movie is, like, two people who are kind of, like, some semi-estranged lovers, like, coming together and...
yeah, potentially.
Okay, whoa, like, what? Whoa, okay. I'm just really pleased that I kind of put this together. Okay. Well, now everything I was going to say about this movie might have to be thrown out the window. Geez. This is the problem.
I don't know what to make of that now, because I'm not entirely sure I'm with that, but I'm curious where this goes.
Because just thinking about it, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure that, like, they ever did.
I don't think they ever, like, it is mostly from frame, because, like, they don't even tell us names in this. Like, it's very, like, context heavy. Or, like, context unheavy, this thing. So, like, yeah, that's perfectly plausible from, like, from a thematic and story setup.
Wow. Okay. All right, so interesting.
Just, like, the presentation around it is just so strange and stilted.
Okay. Yeah, well, this movie, I was about to say, this movie's still not, like, super entertaining.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Because, well, that's my issue, is that, like, his style is just so, like, there are so many just, like, long, just really long takes, but they're the kind of takes that you always notice they're long, because you just feel like they've gone on just a few minutes too long.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, so, yeah, this movie, it's weird, and, like, this is the problem with, like, only seeing some of these movies once before we talk about them.
Especially, like, we're busy people, so we don't have the time, like, to ruminate over them that much.
Yeah. All right, so the actor's name, by the way, is William Schimmel. I don't know. Schimmel. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I think so. The theme, kind of a lot of the ideas they talk about, because, like, his new book is, like, about kind of, art and, like, art forgery and, like, copies and the nature of all that stuff, and
they talk about that rather explicitly a lot.
Yeah, they do. And I'm not totally sure, like, how that ties into kind of the main narrative of the movie, like how that relates to like their relationship and all that stuff. I'm not totally clear on that.
Wasn't there also another couple when they went to this golden leaf tree which is told in the movie to like be of like some, like if you like get married there or something and you promise each other something or whatever, you'll be together forever.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Was he meant to like juxtapose that newly married couple with the James Miller couple?
I mean, I assume so.
You think?
I'm just not quite entirely sure I believe that, like, the Aquilina theory that, like, it's all a twist and, like, they've been married for years and the movie just didn't quite...
Well, no, I think so. I think that... the whole thing is true. Like, what she tells the waitress is actually the truth. And we just don't know that until the midpoint of the movie. Well, now we can barely even talk about this just because
because now we're just arguing about like what the fuck actually happened in the movie.
Our entire understanding of what we just watched has been radically re-altered. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna immediately go back and rewatch this movie, but all right. Well, suffice it to say, this movie might be a lot more interesting than we had thought at first.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I guess, like, if we are going to try and wrap it up here, it's, like, a movie with, like, lots of interesting ideas, like, first off, about, like, concerning the main actor's book, and then I guess, about estranged relationships and the nature of being with a single person for 15 years and interpreting all the sort of relationship signals that go into that sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's presented... they shoot it. It's people are in the frame.
Yeah,
they're in pretty Italy.
I don't know. I like it. There's parts of it. Parts of it are very well done. I mean, Italy's gorgeous, of course, and they got a lot of good, like, kind of, juxtapositions and images thrown in there. And I do love the part where like Juliette Binoche kind of like makes herself like pretty, quote unquote, like at the restaurant, and then comes back and like
really
sits down.
Image.
Yeah, I like all that stuff. So yeah, this movie is interesting, to say the least.
I wouldn't say I can't say I don't recommend it. I guess like what I can say more than anything else, I was just mostly bored by it. It just did not intrigue me. I guess more than anything else.
Yeah. Right, Dr. Reed.
Is that kind of where we're all at?
Dr. Reed, any final thoughts?
Okay, I have two. My first thought is if I want to see a European city porn film, I'll just see him. I'll just watch in Bruges.
Good point.
And two, I made a note of this, is that watching this movie was like wearing very nice dress shoes and then taking them off and realizing your feet are covered with blood blisters, and then going, "Ow, my feet hurt." But you really like those feet still.
Quick tangent, Tyler. What is the best European porn movie? I mean, European city porn movie.
What? Can't speak to the first one. The second one, I mean, I'm sure there are quite a few that I haven't watched. I would say if you don't count The Third Man, I mean, all the Before movies are great European city porn.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, you were the Linklater aficionado, so I'm just curious what you had to say about that.
Well, I've long kind of wondered what you would think of the Before movies, because, I mean, they are gorgeous, and, you love Europe as much as anybody. And also just the character and emotional work in those movies is so rich, but, like, not a lot happens. And I know you're not a particular fan of Richard Linklater's, like, style of filmmaking.
Well, I didn't like Boyhood. I'm reserving judgment on Linklater.
Okay, well, I mean, Daniel hates Boyhood and loves the Before movies, so it's not a set thing. So I don't know. I would still encourage you to check them out at some point.
Yeah, I guess it's just up to me at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I guess like I'm always like I guess like The Third Man is the ultimate European city porn movie.
Yeah. So there you go.
So that's
so those are our bizarre ramblings on Certified Copy. I'd say worth checking out. Clearly.
It's different. It is different. I can't quite think of another movie like it.
Yeah.
Or another movie that did this to us. So it has that going for it, and it broke Reed, so...
I'm just amazed none of us, like, understood the twist until just now.
Yeah, I might need to rewatch the movie to be sure about it, but Interesting. But are we ready for Close Up?
All right, yes, let's talk about Close Up. 1990 Iranian film, produced in Iran this time.
Was it filmed in what? Well, did the trial take place in Tehran, or because it's all based on like a real event?
I think so. So this movie is very strange and very interesting.
Yeah. It's a documentary in the same way F for Fake is a documentary.
Well, yeah, it's weird. It's like part documentary and like large chunks of it are just like footage of this guy's trial. Okay, so let me explain this. Okay, so this movie follows a guy named, oh god, what is his name? I meant to get everything straight before I okay.
We are scrambling to the internet.
Okay, so this guy's name, his name is Hossein Sabzian. Sabzian, okay, that's what they call him. So Sabzian impersonates a famous Iranian director named Mohsen Makhmalbaf, and doesn't really decide, like, just kind of accidentally, like, deceives this family, like this kind of upper class Iranian family, into, like, letting him stay in their house, and, like, he kind of fools them into thinking, like, he is Makhmalbaf and will kind of make a movie about them. And so the movie is, like, half Sabzian's trial for attempted fraud. And
is that like real footage?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
That's what the movie presents it as.
That's what it looked like. But then it mixes that with all the people, all the like the major players in the story, playing themselves.
Yes.
But in like staged like recreations of like what happened to them. Which is so interesting.
Anyone else has done something like this?
Yeah, which is so crazy. So it's a weird like kind of film and documentary like hybrid, with some really interesting like meditations on like the power of cinema to impact someone's life and like.
Yeah, and it's also about like the majority of the movie is pretty much like trying to answer like why he did it.
Yeah.
And like what's the name again?
Sabzian
gives like these long-winded sort of lectures concerning the nature of acting and looking up to people and like presenting it and like the sort of thrill of obtaining a new life, because he's sort of living vicariously through this director as a way to obtain like a higher societal standing, because he says like, I go back to my apartment and everything's broken. A director needs to have the money to drive a car, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's a recurring thing. They keep like asking him like why he did this, and you kind of get the sense he doesn't really know like why he did it. He just kind of
he just gives like a series of long-winded possibilities.
Yeah, he just kind of like was so like he repeatedly says like this director's film like just changed his life and like really impacted him. And the ending...
He constantly says, like, I want you to realize my appreciation for the art. For art, and, like, my place as an artist when you hear my story.
I mean, it's very clear that, like, what he did was not done out of any kind of malice. He just kind of became caught up in this, like, this grand, like, kind of idea of, like, performance and directing and
himself involved in that. It's very strange and very interesting.
I mean, because this movie is so much like devoted to like authenticity and like the real story, like it's not reducible to like kind of easy narrative terms, so it's kind of
it is meandering, to say the least.
It's hard to pin down any like kind of character motivations or arcs or anything, because
in fact, like character motivations are like one of the great questions of the movie, to be honest.
So that's all fascinating stuff. As a viewing experience, it can be a little tedious.
I was mostly bored to tears by it because the editing of it is like really basic. It's pretty much just him. Just like I guess like chronologically, it's fairly interesting, but like all of the like, and there are some interesting shots of like at one point like he's like trying. You see him filming things in like this strange voyeuristic angle, like we see like recreations through like windows or through like plants and things like that, and like there's like a scene where like they're trying to record him, but like the sound keeps cutting out, and you can hear the people trying to get the recording. I don't think that was staged. I feel like that was actual footage. And that's also that I was wondering like, is that real or is that fake? Which is a fascinating question the movie brings out.
Well, because the ending, which is I thought was really beautiful, is that Sabzian gets out of prison and meets the real Makhmalbaf, and then
which is really interesting. Yes.
Yeah, and he's like weeping. He like embraces him, and like they go together to like apologize to the family.
Yes.
And that's all good stuff. And and the sound keeps cutting out because like their recording equipment was, I guess, not that great.
They keep saying like, "Damn, this we got the old shit."
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of it's an extremely like fascinating cinematic experiment.
Nothing else like this.
Yeah, and
you will never find another movie like it.
Yeah, and it's an incredible experiment. It's an incredible like meditation on cinema, on performance, on direction, on all that stuff.
Damn good true story.
Yeah, incredible true story. I just wonder like how he heard about this and like what kind of prompted him to. Maybe he read about it in the paper. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, or there's like the opening where like there's the recreation with the journalist and like the police officers. And I guess like isn't like the opening like him like it was written down in like a magazine article.
Yeah. I forgot. Yeah, so that's all interesting stuff. And then what was I gonna say? But yeah, like because just a lot of this movie is just like close up on Sabzian like during the trial, giving super long-winded answers. You get to see the scene of them like setting up the camera and saying like, "This is a close up. This is going to be on your face." They're explaining a close up to him. Yeah, which is fascinating. But yeah, as far as like a viewing experience, it's not the most entertaining thing, sadly. Yeah, it's not thrilling, but that's okay. Yes, I will take like fascinating experimental cinema over like this movie stimulated my brain. Yeah, it's not a movie that I'm gonna probably rewatch with any frequency, if at all. But I'm damn glad I saw it, and it's an incredible, piece of art and piece of filmmaking. If you really want to get like if you want like a really interesting experimental film, by all means, this is fascinating. I'd recommend like everybody see it once just to kind of it is like an experience, especially like if you want to like if you really want a movie that like blurs the line between like what is staged and what is recreation. This is a really good source of that. Yeah. But I'm also learning this man must really love F for Fake. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, that's probably true. And I can't blame him. Yeah. Yeah, this has been Iranian week. Yep. It's been a ride. It's been quite a ride. This was interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess I do have to come up with like the bold question. When is Summer of Foreign Cinema coming to an end? That's something I was thinking about also. I think we can probably do
1 or 2 more weeks, maybe?
Probably, I would say like 2 more episodes of this. 2 more? Okay. And then it'll be October, and I kind of want to shift into... I have a plan for... I think we should do maybe like a week of Cronenberg, and then I want to get into some like more like modern horror movies that I've been wanting to see. Because like that's like a phenomenon that just like whipped all of us, that just went right by us because we just weren't listening. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There's several recent horror movies that I would love to check out. Yeah, that'd be an interesting direction to take the show. I'd be in support of that. All right. So we got 2 more episodes of Summer of International Film coming your way first. So what do we want to make the penultimate episode? Oh, actually, I have an idea for what I think the last episode should be. Okay, what's your idea? My idea for the last episode is that I think we should do 1 or 2 of the movies that was recommended to me in Ask the Vidiots, which... that
That'd be perfect.
Because one of them was a movie by Johnny To, who is a Hong Kong filmmaker that I've been meaning to check out.
Yeah, ending on Hong Kong, I'd be in support of.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We all enjoy Hong Kong cinema quite a bit.
Yes.
All right, so that's that. But before we do that, because I think that should be the final episode, what do we want to do first?
I guess it kind of, this is strange coming from me, I guess I kind of want to get away from Europe for, like, these next 2 weeks.
That is understandable.
As far as like, especially like when people say like foreign cinema, like European cinema is like the dominant thing in that.
Mm.
That's why I think I like doing an Iranian week was really important.
Yeah.
Well, I have a suggestion. If we do want to, stay in Iran, we could do Asghar Farhadi.
We could
potentially.
I was thinking his Academy Award winning movie, The Salesman.
Yeah. There's that, and then A Separation is a movie that people talk about all the time that I haven't seen.
You have a lot of fucking options. There are so many movies. There's so many fucking movies.
There's so many. And I mean, any of these that we don't do now, we will probably come back to at some point.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
I
have the idea of like maybe like doing like a Mexican cinema week where like we watch like a Quran, like we watch like what's the Quran movie you brought up?
Y tu mamá también.
When we pair that up with like maybe like a Spanish Guillermo del Toro picture.
Okay. I like this. I'm into it. Rest assured, Reed, I do want to see A Separation, so we will come back to Asghar Farhadi at some point.
That's really that'd be something I want to see too. Let's see.
I will say this though, just as a bit of a rationale, the weeks when we've tended to like when we do like movies from the same country 2 weeks in a row, like the second week tends to really not go very well.
Yeah, that's just the thing about me.
Also, so we're doing Y tu mamá también.
We could try Devil's Backbone, which is sort of like his.
I have not seen that.
I'm looking at it. It seems really interesting.
We could do Devil's Backbone, or we could do Kronos. Those are kind of his two.
Kronos, yeah.
Let's do Devil's Backbone. Why don't we do Devil's Backbone?
Yeah. Devil's Backbone seems really interesting.
All right. Okay.
This will be interesting.
This will probably be interesting. Okay. So Y tu mamá también and The Devil's Backbone. Fair warning. Y tu mamá también is another one of those movies that you're not gonna want to watch with other people in the room.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have. That's not. I have become accustomed to that.
But yeah.
This will be an interesting week.
It shall.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Mexican Cinema Week coming your way next time as we start to draw this summer of international film to a close. Yep. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Hooray!
Wreck. I feel dead. Okay.
Everything is shut down. The world has paused. Nothing can go forward anymore. I don't think I've seen like sort of like classical like Japanese cinema.
Yeah, I mean Ozu was also kind of part of that generation, although I think he came a little bit later.
Yeah, he was a bit more of a he was a bit less of a traditionalist.
Yeah, there was a lot of overlap in terms of kind of the periods, because like Kurosawa was starting up right around the time that Mizoguchi's career was kind of winding down. So
who knew?
Yep.
What's going on? Are you trying to blow up pop rocks in your apartment?
Again.
I was just tearing out paper. It
sounded like you were banging a piece of sheet metal with a hammer.